Hi guys, it's Kino. Welcome to another video. So I'm kind of nervous today because today's video is a little bit different than all the other videos I've done on this channel. If you're new here, hello, I'm Kino. Usually I do pick a card readings, but today I wanted to actually talk about reading tarot itself and share some tips because I know that quite a few of you read your own tarot cards. Maybe like you're just starting and you're not really sure how to go about it, or you've been doing it for a while and you just want to feel more confident in your readings. So I've put together 5 tips for you today, and I hope that they're going to be useful, and I hope that they're going to be things that you haven't heard before. So a little bit about me. I am a translator. That's my main job. I translate Japanese to English, and I am someone who's always enjoyed learning and studying different languages. So learning tarot, I've found that not only is reading tarot a lot like translating, but learning how to do it is a lot like learning a new language. And I think that a lot of the tips that you could use when learning a language also apply to tarot. So if any of you guys are like bilingual or you've learned a language before, you will probably relate to these tips. And so I'm going to be drawing parallels between those two things throughout this video. Let's do it. Let's get started. Tip number 1 is don't be afraid to make mistakes. This is obviously a useful tip when you're learning how to do anything, but I think that it's especially important to remember this when it comes to tarot or any sort of divination. So my understanding of how tarot works is there's you're the reader, and then there's the divine, and that can be your guides, that can be your higher self, that can be the higher self of the person that you're reading for. But basically my belief is that it's the divine that actually determines the card that comes out based on the situation. And then you, the reader, are to use your knowledge of that card, the knowledge of what it means, as well as your intuition to relay the appropriate message. And I personally feel like the intuitive part is more important than the actual knowledge of the card itself, and I'll get into that later. But yeah, I think that learning to tap into your intuition is the most important thing, and learning how to do that is just like learning how to do anything else. There's going to be people who are, naturally good at it, it just comes to them easily. There's going to be some people who have to work a little bit harder and, practice at it for longer. But the bottom line is that everybody can do it. Just like anybody can learn how to sing, or anybody can learn how to speak a language, I think anybody can learn how to use their intuition. And I wish that it was a little bit more demystified, because the way that some people seem to think about it is like it's a gift and you either have it or you don't. You're either psychic or you're not. And then what that sort of mentality does is when you're doing a tarot reading, it's like you have to make this assertion that like, I have a gift, I'm psychic, and like I can get these things right. And it almost feels like making a mistake is out of the question, and if you make a mistake, that like discredits the whole reading, it discredits the message, it discredits the practice. I hear so many people talk like that about psychic abilities and divination, but that's like the only thing people do that with, I've never heard of any other human skill or ability that people do that with. Like, oh, she's not a real singer because she sang a note off key one time. Like, it's fine. We're people. We make mistakes. We're dumb. Singers are always going to sing a note off key. Sometimes when the sports players go to do the sports, they don't make a goal. Sometimes doctors misdiagnose people. Sometimes scientists make a hypothesis and the hypothesis is wrong. The thing itself is real and true, and it's just us, the people, who mess it up. It's okay. The divine messages are good. The divine messages are perfect, but humans are imperfect. There's no piano player who's ever played everything perfectly. There is no psychic who has predicted or read everything perfectly. I can't even walk perfectly. I trip over myself all the time. Does that mean I'm not a real walker? That was a bad example, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. I just wish that there was more I wish that there was more acceptance surrounding making mistakes, because that's just what people do, and it does not discredit you as an intuitive, it does not discredit you as someone with psychic abilities. It just means that maybe you need to work that muscle a little bit more. And just be okay with the fact that it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to get every reading bang on, and you don't have to. I think that what is more important to people is that you can give them a message that is helpful, that moves them, that allows them to grow and to heal from something and to feel reassurance that they're on the right path. I think that's what really matters the most. Like, for example, so I'm an Aries. Let's say I have a friend who is a Libra and we get in a fight and we're not friends anymore. And I feel really guilty about the whole thing. I keep thinking like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that, and just going over what happened again and again and again and not letting myself move on from it. And then let's say I get a tarot reading and the reader says, okay, I'm picking up on a lot of guilt from you. I feel like you might have had a relationship or a friendship with somebody that went sour. I'm picking up on Virgo energy, but I think that you're holding on to a lot of guilt that you shouldn't be, and you need to forgive yourself because whatever happened, it wasn't your fault. You're being too hard on yourself. It's not fair to put all of the blame on you. You need to forgive yourself and move on. And if I hear that whole message and what I take away from that is, well, actually, my friend was a Libra, not a Virgo. I'm missing the point. The point is to get helpful guidance. It's not to be bang on accurate about everything. So don't beat yourself up if you got something wrong. If you're gonna like critique your reading skills, rather than critiquing how accurate you were about all the details, maybe think like, was the message I delivered helpful to the person? Was it relayed in a positive way that makes them feel like they can change for the better and move on to the right path? Did it uplift their spirit? That's what you should be thinking about. And as long as you're doing that, honestly, like who cares if everything was right or not? Tip number two is read for yourself. I feel like this is not a tip that people give very often. In fact, I actually think that quite a few people advise against this when you're learning tarot, but I disagree. So this might be an unpopular opinion, but let's get into it. I'm gonna make a comparison to learning a language. Let's say you're learning Spanish and you want to read a book. You want to read a simple book to practice your reading skills. If you read a book that you already know, it's going to be a much easier thing to start off with, and even if there's a word that you don't know, you can use your deduction abilities to figure out what it means. So if you're reading The Three Little Pigs, you may be like, okay, the first pig made their house out of, I don't know that word, but it has to be straw, right? Because you know that book very well, you can fill in the blanks of things that you don't know and use your own critical thinking skills rather than looking up the meaning of every word. If you dive right into a story that you don't know, it's going to be long. You're going to have to stop every 2 seconds and look up a word. So it's helpful in tarot too to start by reading for yourself, for the reason that you know yourself, you know your situation, and you know your feelings very well. And so you can deduce what the cards mean by applying your situation to them. The reason some people say not to do this is because they say that you might project your own desires, your own desired outcome, or your own feelings onto the cards rather than reading the accurate meaning of them. And there's a reason I'm doing this, because accurate in tarot does not mean adhering to the textbook definition. Accurate in tarot means reflecting what that person really feels on the inside. But if you really think there's a risk that you're going to do that, like you're going to project the wrong message, wouldn't the best way to overcome that be to practice doing it? How are you going to get better at delivering an accurate message and tapping into your intuition if you avoid that problem altogether? Do you know what I mean? Again, pertaining to the whole accurate meaning thing, I want to tell a little story about one of my close friends. So She has never studied tarot before. She never really properly looked at the cards before in her life, but one day she was just like, I want to read for you. And I was like, okay. So she did a reading for me, and again, she doesn't know what any of these cards are actually supposed to mean. She just read them based on what she thought they should mean, you know, what they looked like or whatever feeling they gave her. And I could see her reading the cards, and sometimes she would say something like, oh, this card is telling me da 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 da. And it's not what the card actually traditionally means, but it applied to my situation and it was still really accurate the way that she read it for me in that situation. So I think that the divine is not going to place a card in front of you because it means something in a book or it means something on the internet. It's going to place a card in front of you because of the way that you are going to interpret it. The divine, your guides are smart. They know how your mind works. They know what you're going to see or think when you look at a card. That's why everybody gets signs from their guides differently. Maybe if I see a feather on the ground, it's super relevant to me and it means this, but maybe somebody else is going to see a button on the ground and that means the same thing to them, but it's a different object. And tarot cards are the same way. I feel like everybody should have their own unique interpretation that they emotionally identify with, that yes, does project their own experiences and their own desires and their own feelings onto it, because that's what makes it interesting. You know, when we watch the readers on YouTube, there's a lot of people who don't read the cards exactly how they're supposed to mean, and they still offer really moving and really accurate messages. And if everybody was just regurgitating the textbook meaning, there would be no point in watching those videos. You know, you could just Google what the cards mean by yourself. My advice would be to study the standard meanings first and then use them, like use them in real life, see how they apply to your own situation, and then you create your own special meaning for every card. It's like you and your deck have like a special relationship, and you trust that the divine is going to give you the appropriate cards for whatever your inner feeling is. And then if you're reading for other people, you trust that the people who need to hear your interpretation will find you. And another thing I want to say is that it's okay to allow these meanings to change over time. Maybe if you're just starting reading tarot now, a certain card evokes a certain emotion in you and you attach a certain meaning to it. But then a year later, the same card doesn't give you the same feeling anymore and you kind of feel like it means something different. That's entirely okay. Just like the meaning of words can change over time, right? Sometimes I'll watch like clips of my own videos and I'm like, I cannot believe I read that card like that. Why did I read it like that? Like, there's no way I would read that card like that now. But in that moment, for that video and for whoever watched it, that is what worked. And if I read it differently now, that's okay. Okay, so yeah, read for yourself, give it your own flavor, give it your own spin, and whoever needs to hear that version will come to you. You don't have to read cards the same as everybody else. You don't have to read them the same as the internet tells you to read them. Really make it your own. Develop an emotional connection. Okay, number 3 is... What's number 3? Make example sentences. So what I mean by this is you can treat every tarot card like a word. It has its own meaning on its own when it's isolated from other words, but if you put it in a sentence, so put it with other cards, the meaning can change quite a bit based on the context. For an example, let's use the word retreat. What does it mean? Does it mean that you're spending a relaxing, rejuvenating time alone, away from the stresses of the world? Or does it mean that you're running and hiding from your mortal enemies in battle? It's the same word, but it's describing 2 very different situations. So now let's say you're doing a tarot reading about a certain person and your relationship with them, and you get the Justice card. Can you see it? I don't know if it's focused, I've never done a video like this. So you get the Justice card. This card is about fairness, it's about being balanced, it's about being objective, it's about doing the right thing. So this could mean a lot of things in your situation. It could be talking about the personality of the person you're asking about. Maybe there's somebody who's very fair, they have a very good conscience, a good moral compass, they like to think things through and do what they know is right. Maybe this means that you need to think more objectively about your connection with this person and find balance between your heart and your head, find balance between your feelings and the truth. Maybe this means the person you're asking about needs to do that with something in their life. Maybe it's hard to know just from this one card what this is trying to tell you. The same way sometimes we need to see a word in a sentence to find out what it really means. So it could be any one of these things. It could be a combination of more than one of them, and you may intuitively feel that it's more one than the other. But if you're still not sure, you can take one or two extra cards to make a sentence and figure out what this word means. So I'm actually gonna do that. I'm gonna take two extra cards, and they're probably gonna, yeah, oh my gosh. Okay, there's one, and there's another one. What do we got? Jajang! Okay, so we have the Justice card, and we also got the Five of Swords and the Queen of Cups. So the way I would take this is that the meaning of justice we were looking for is that you need to be more objective about the way you're thinking about this person. We have the Five of Swords, which, and again, I'm not even sure if this is the textbook meaning, but this is how this card comes up for me. It means that you're confused. It means that there's something that you're not seeing. It means that there's some inner conflict that you need to address. And then we have the Queen of Cups, which can represent somebody who is being quite sensitive, quite emotional, and perhaps there's a need to control your emotions. So when we read this together with the Justice card, I would say that the meaning of this justice is that there is an imbalance between your head and your heart, and you're probably thinking too much with your heart when it comes to your connection with this person. And I'm gonna take two random ones again. Now we have the Four of Wands and Temperance, and I just randomly took these out of the deck. So it's the same card, but now it has a little bit of a different meaning for you. Before we were seeing that it showed you needed to have balance between your head and your heart. Maybe you have to think about things more objectively, and I guess it was sort of implying that maybe you think there's more there than there actually is. But this one is showing something quite different. This is showing now that this is your soulmate. This is quite likely the person that you're going to end up with together. Maybe this is the person you're gonna marry. But things are moving kind of slowly and you need to be more patient. So in this way, the Justice card is now about being fair to you, giving you the future that you deserve, trusting that the work that you put into this connection is going to pay off and you are going to get this happy ending. But the divine has its own timing, it has its own schedule, so you need to be a bit more objective in that way. And so you can keep doing this with like the same card in the middle and put different cards on either side and see how the meaning changes in each sentence, in each context. And it doesn't even have to be like a reading for you. You can make like hypothetical readings like I just did now, and that's why I call them like example sentences. So you can repeat this a couple times with the same card, and through doing that, your meaning of that one card and its different uses will get deeper and deeper and deeper until when that card comes out in a reading, there's no way you're going to be stumped because you're like, I've seen all the combinations, I've seen how it works in every situation. Tip number 4. Less is more. So I thought this would be a good tip to follow number 3, since we were just talking about all the different meanings and nuances that one card can have. Just like how in an essay a good point can be made with few words, I think a good tarot reading can be done with few cards. Of course, this is just my personal opinion, so you can totally disagree with it, and of course you can read tarot however you want, but I just feel like when I'm watching a reading, for example, and the person takes out like 40 tarot cards, I'm kind of like, why do you need so many? I personally like to keep my readings around 10 cards or less. And I'll break it up into parts. So I'll say like, okay, these 2 cards are gonna answer this question and these 3 cards are gonna answer this question. But to be honest, my absolute favorite tarot readers on YouTube are the ones who only use 1 card for each aspect of the situation. And that's all they need because they know each card so well. And I'm sure that they've learned all the different meanings of this card over time through their experience reading throughout the years. There able to look at a single card and just keep drawing information, keep drawing messages out of it for several minutes. One reader that I really enjoy, and I'm actually going to recommend him to you, is Occult Gate. He does really accurate readings with just a few cards. I think he actually only uses a tarot deck. He doesn't use oracle cards or anything like that. And he knows each card really, really well, and I really like the way that he interprets them. And it's even, you know, sort of studying for me when I watch his readings, like, oh, okay, it has that meaning too. That makes a lot of sense. I would definitely recommend to check him out. It's totally okay to pull extra clarifying cards when you need them, and I would even recommend reading several cards at a time to get the context, like we were talking about in the last tip. But I think what can happen, like if you're just starting to learn, is let's say you pull like one card for the situation you want to read about, and there's a lot of information in that one card about your situation, but because maybe you don't know it so well yet, or it's just a little hard, you take more and more and more, because the more there is, like, the easier it is to paint the picture, and you sort of, I guess, overlook all the messages that were within that one card. And I think it kind of prevents you from really deepening your knowledge of each one. I guess you would have a very shallow understanding of all the bunch of cards that you used, rather than a deep understanding of each and every individual one. But again, I just want to stress that this is my tip, and you can do the readings any way that you want. I just think it's a really nice way to like gain a deeper appreciation for each of the cards and how much each individual one can tell you. Like, there's so much wisdom in there. I just really like the feeling of like going on and on and on about one card and just being like surprised every time at how much more it has to offer. That's just me. It's a little cheesy, but... So finally, tip number 5 is trust yourself. And this is like the most important one out of all of them. I said it earlier in this video, and I will say it again. Reading tarot is not about the meanings of the cards. It's about the messages that you feel inspired to share with that person. So it's really important to trust that your divine guidance is going to show you the cards that are necessary, and that your interpretation will be the right one for the person you're reading for. Trust that even if you make a little mistake on the detail of the person's story or some information about them or the people involved, that there is going to be a message of value to them. Trust that your words are ultimately going to help them along their journey and uplift them. So I drew a picture, and if you watched this far, please make sure to comment on how good this drawing is. Okay, so this is you, right? You're the tarot reader. And here's the divine up here. This is your guides, your higher self, etc. And up here, they can see like the bigger picture of everything. So they know what the cards mean, they know how you will interpret certain cards, and they know what message this person needs to hear. So knowing that, they select the perfect cards so that you look at it and you say the perfect message to this person. It's really important to trust yourself, because if you start to get nervous, if you start to second guess yourself or doubt yourself, that is what blocks your intuition, and your intuition is what the divine is using to communicate the message to you. Your intuition is what carries the correct message, and your logical or cautious mind that comes in after second guessing, that is what can muddle the message. And I personally have a feeling that your guides could sort of override this if they wanted to. Like, they could predict how your nervous, self-doubting self was going to interpret the message and show you a card to make it so that you say the right thing in that frame of mind. But then there would be no lesson to learn there, you know? That wouldn't be teaching you how to use your intuition. So in that situation, if you're struggling with trusting yourself and the message that you're supposed to say, your guides might let you say the wrong message in that case, so that you learn from that mistake and you say, oh shit, my intuition was right. I should have said the first thing that came to my head. I'm just gonna trust my instincts next time. I remember one time I got a request to do a personal reading, and I was asked to do a reading about them and their person and their relationship, and then they asked me to pick a song that I thought would describe their relationship. So I was doing the reading, and like immediately this song came to my mind, and I just blurted it out, and it was this electronic song that I really like. It's called Skeleton. It slaps, by the way, and it's just, I really like it. I love the song, I love the video, it's so cute, and so it just popped right into my head, and I was like, oh, I know a song, it's called Skeleton. And I start talking about this song, and then in my head, like, I'm still doing the reading and talking about it, but in my head I started panicking and I'm like, oh shit, like that, I just said that because I like that song. I'm just projecting my own things that I like, and I felt like really dumb, and I was like, oh okay, well that's just the song that I thought about for now, but if I think about another one I'll mention it. The reading ended and I just kept thinking about it. I was like, fuck, that was so dumb, like I just said my own favorite song. And I kept thinking about it to the point where when the video was uploaded and I sent it to them, I just picked another song and sent the link to that one too, and it was just like this generic like pop love song, and I was like, oh, I thought that this song might be good too. I got a reply from this person the next day or whenever it was, and they said, thank you for the reading, and they said, I really liked the skeleton song. I think it described our relationship very well. That was the song that I chose first, and that was the song that I kept worrying about. And they didn't say anything about the second song that I picked. And it's so ironic to me that, you know, that logical part of your mind that comes in later is trying to prevent you from making a mistake, but it's actually what strays you off from the correct message. So the takeaway from that is, you know, don't try to analyze, don't try to critique the messages that are coming to you. It's hard, but just share them. Just share whatever comes to your mind. Don't be afraid, trust yourself. Okay, so those are all the tips. I hope that they were helpful, and I hope that they brought some new ideas to you that you hadn't considered before. I truly believe that anybody can read tarot because everybody has the ability to share healing, constructive, uplifting messages with other people. And that's really what it's all about. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and comment on this video if you feel like doing that. Please let me know if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. I'll probably get less awkward as they go. I probably won't. And if you're new here, feel free to check out my pick a card tarot readings as well. I hope you're having a wonderful day or night whenever you're watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!